Good evening. I'm Bill Stodden, and I am running for president as a candidate from the Socialist Party USA. I'd like to take a few minutes to address our position on peace, veterans issues, and our vision for a more equitable society. I am a veteran. I served as an artillery fire controlman in the 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines, based in Twin Palms, California. I was a corporal of Marines when I was honorably discharged, having earned a Naval Achievement Medal among other medals and ribbons for my service. You might be surprised to hear the voice of a leftist veteran, but I assure you, there are more of us than you might think. We come from all across the country and represent all segments of the population. But the common thread, especially among the enlisted men and women, is class. Most enlisted military members are recruited from the working class and the poor. We are often recruited from parts of the country where young people who are desperate for work or access to higher education are lured by the military's promise of a reliable income and a better future. My siblings in service are then chewed up in imperialist wars, and when they either do not re-enlist or are tossed out because they suffer from untold physical, mental, and emotional horrors, they are forgotten. This is unacceptable, and we are committed to taking a stand against the continued militarism that has led to tens of thousands of American deaths over the past 2 decades, and hundreds of thousands of injuries, both visible and invisible. We stand not just with the enlisted ranks and the veterans, but also with the civilian populations that they are drawn from. We oppose the imperialistic wars that lead to abuse, neglect, and death of service members while causing PTSD and suicide among those who survive the wars of the wealthy. We call for full funding of the Veterans Administration and expansion of Veterans Health Services to include comprehensive mental health services for all active and reserve service members. We seek to reduce the stigma associated with the PTSD and encourage veterans to seek help when they need it from practitioners who believe them when they tell them that something is going on, rather than trying to find ways to ignore these service members. How can we afford this, you might ask? We call for a 90% reduction in the defense budget. Using this peace dividend, we can provide programs like universal health care, a federal jobs guarantee, not just with a living wage, but with a thriving wage, and a 100% federally funded education from preschool to post-secondary. In this way, we can provide our working class kids with a viable and peaceful alternative to enlistment. We also call for programs to help veterans transition to civilian life with job training, job placement, and additional schooling. We seek to expand services to veterans, including a robust Veterans Crisis Line, wider offer of services at veterans health care facilities, and more options for veterans who cannot make it to a VA hospital. We also support increased services to help veterans who find themselves food insecure, homeless, or addicted to drugs to get back on their feet and start living life after their service is completed. Finally, we want to eliminate the causes of war to make it so more working class and poor youth don't enlist in the first place. We call for a foreign policy that relies on diplomacy rather than force. We call for the elimination of overseas bases. We call for peace and normal relations with our neighbors and the end of support for violent foreign regimes who use our weaponry and our money to kill their neighbors for the U.S. government. We seek to reimagine the U.S. as a nation of peace, not one that sees itself as the police force of the world, where politicians and capitalists start war for profit, using the lifeblood of the world's working class to grease their tank treads. If politicians and capitalists are unwilling to fight in the wars that they themselves started, they should not be allowed to start wars for others to fight and die in. We echo the sentiment of Marine Major General Smedley D. Butler, winner of 2 Congressional Medals of Honor. He said, "War is a racket. It always has been. It is probably the oldest, easily the most profitable, surely the most vicious. It is the only one international in scope. It is the only one in which profits are reckoned in dollars and losses in lives. War is indeed a racket, and our campaign stands opposed not only to the racket itself, but to the racketeers who run it. We stand with the men and women who have to fight in wars, and we stand with them when their service is completed. We want to fight a war against poverty, not wars that kill the poor and make the rich even richer. We can't accomplish this with socialism. I ask you, my comrades in arms, to vote socialist in 2024. Vote Stodden, Cholensky in November. Let's stand up against the greedy and corrupt two-party system, which is a fully owned subsidiary of American oil interests, Wall Street, and the millionaires and billionaires, none of whom would ever dream of enlisting to fight the wars they ask us to sacrifice our lives in. Unlike either of the candidates from the 2 major parties, I know what it's like to serve. You do too. I know what it feels like when the balloon goes up and I get put on 24-hour alert. You do too. I know how it feels to tell my family that I might not come home and to send my will to my mother. You do too. We know what that feels like, and like you, I don't think our country's working class and poor ought to be used as tools of empire. Let's do something about that in 2024, and let's not leave any of our comrades behind. Thank you. I'm William Stodden, Socialist Party USA candidate for president, and I approve this message.